Welcome to the inaugural edition of One for One with E-Money webcast, and we are sitting here live in the hybrid studios with paintball legend Gary Shows. And Gary's coming on the show, going to talk about all the stuff that's happening, get to the bottom of all the rumors, and he'll let you guys find out the real story. So kick back, hang out with us, and enjoy the show.
One for One with E-Money is sponsored by MoneyPaintball.org, your #1 source for turf, compressors, bunkers, and netting, all with 100% financing. That's right, 100% financing. Available only at MoneyPaintball.org. PaintballTurf.net, your premier source for all major brands of paintball turf. Accept no substitutions. PaintballTurf.net. Netting at 50% off at PaintballTurf.net. ProPaintballWeekly.com, the world's #1 rated paintball show, bringing you the latest news and newsmakers from the world of pro paintball. Get your fix at ProPaintballWeekly.com.
So Gary, why don't you talk about, a lot of people know you, but they don't know the teams that you've played for. And let's talk about some of the teams you played for and what paintball was like back in the dinosaur days of the
dinosaur
early 90s.
days.
Yes.
As dinosaur days or wood days, I guess you could call them. When I first started, it was actually was out of SC Village, and we played, and then a bunch of guys just wanted to start a team, and I started a team with another guy that a lot of people know as Little John. We met in a parking lot, and he was walking across he's embarrassed about it, but he was walking across the parking lot in a ghillie suit. We kind of like making fun of him a little bit, but we struck up a conversation. We ended up with a friendship, and we started a team. And our first team was a 5-man team called Bad Karma. And we played local tournaments in Southern California, and then we started traveling. And it was so funny, too, because we would travel, and I had a dually at the time, but one of the guys on the team, he was afraid to fly, so we always had to drive. So we would drive to Dallas or, stuff like that, do tournaments. But from there, we went from a team called Untouchables. And from there, then we went to a team. John and I left, and we went to a team. We started playing pro, and our first pro team was GBD. That name stands for the good, bad, the deadly. Some people called us going bald daily, or because even back then we were a little bit older guys. But that was the first pro team, and that was 10-man in the woods, and it was interesting. Woods days is completely different than what it is today. It's they were intense teams back then. The big teams were the Ironmen. Big teams were Aftershock, Rage was there, but right before that, there was teams called Navarone. There was a team called Lords of Discipline. Those names strike a bell with some of the older guys.
Oh, yeah.
They were intense and intimidating teams back then. But,
And now, Garrett, you, again, from GBD, you said you went to the Ironmen, and talk about the Ironmen, and actually, a lot of people don't even know. Say some of the names that were on that Ironman team back then.
Well, the Ironman team I went on was Bob Long's Ironman.
Okay.
There was a split back then. Some people know the story, some people don't. And to get all the gossip stuff, it's not really necessary.
Well, you can give us the short version, because a lot of people have no idea.
The team felt they needed to change. I guess that's the way to say it politely. And they stayed together, and Bob was out.
Well, the original team was Bob.
There
Long.
was Shaner. There was Brian Benini. There was Jamie. There was Clayton.
Youngblood was on that team, right?
Dave was on the team.
Okay.
Dave Youngblood was on the team. There was Dirk. I know I'm missing a bunch of them.
But that was kind of the who's who, and that was the dynasty of the day back then. And
it is interesting. Daryl Trent was on the team.
Okay.
To see the people that are sort of like coaches, or what we're going to call it, principals in the paintball industry now, are players back then. Shaner, he's an excellent coach nowadays. Daryl Trent, I would have never guessed that Daryl Trent was going to be as good a coach as he is now. And here he is working with Smart Parts, and he made Philadelphia. As far as I'm concerned, he coached Philadelphia to where they were. I would have never guessed that was in Daryl, but he's there. Then Shaner, and then Dave. Look what's happened with Dave.
Yep.
So it's interesting to see all the old names coming up, and now they're doing what they're doing.
Yep. So those guys ended up splitting, and then you played with Bob.
I played with Bob.
Okay.
And at the time, they had a second team called Bob Long's second team, whatever, Ironman 2 or something like that, and he took those guys. And then they want to form a team. We left GBD. John and I left GBD and went with Bob.
Okay.
We started playing with Ironman too.
So
you've
Bob
Long Ironman.
So you, like I said, been around the industry a long time now. I understand you still I guess, well, it was at Huntington Beach this year. I think I saw you with an Ironman jersey on, and
Yeah.
who would have thought, that was 10, 20 years, no, 10, 15 years later.
Yeah.
Still in the Ironman, but obviously a little different format at the beach, and paintball's come a long way.
I told him in confidence, because I see myself not being able to play that much longer. I mean, I think it's kind of weird that I'm still playing, and some people will say that I shouldn't be playing, but the guys on the team say that as long as I can not participate, as I can contribute to the team, then they want me to play. There have been times where they said don't play, and I haven't played, but then they come back and say we want you to play. So there's certain functions that I do that they want me to do, and I play. But I, in confidence, told the Ironman, Dave Youngblood and Brian Benini, I said somewhere along the way, I'd like to play in an Ironman jersey. I've always, in my mind, I always wanted to play as an Ironman somewhere along the way. So the opportunity came up, and they called me up and said, hey, would you like to play on our second team in Huntington Beach? And I go, shoot, yeah, I'll do that. So they made a jersey for me and everything. So
Okay, Okay.
Yeah, a little fixing, I guess you could say.
Okay, yeah, but no, I remember because I saw it, I was like, what's that? Do you have an Ironman jersey?
Yeah.
I was like, was that Gary?
But remember, too, I haven't played 7-man in, gosh, I don't think I've played 7-man in, I don't know, 10 years.
Yeah.
You know, and then all of a sudden, here I am in Jersey playing 7-man. So I didn't play that many games, but at least I can say I had the jersey and I walked on the field with
There you go.
as an Ironman jersey.
Yeah, we got to frame that up and get
I'll
it
keep
signed.
that
Oh,
jersey.
yeah. Oh, yeah. How important do you think that leadership is on the field?
It is important. The young guys, I think what happens is that we have a generation of players that haven't played woods. So because they don't know how to play woods, they don't really know how to read a field. And there's certain skills that you can take from the woods and apply it to what you would call arena type of paintball. One of the comments that one of the other guys made on the team, he goes, we want you to play because you're able to figure out where to run on the field and people don't see you sometimes. And you take the strangest angles, but it works for you and you make it to a certain spot. And so we want that experience. And I think if you look at some of the other teams, usually what they'll do is they'll put an experienced player behind one or two real young players that are really fast, and he plays off of them because he can read where those other guys, they can't read the field. The younger kids, you give them a task to do. You say, okay, you go to point A, you do this. You go to point B, you do this, this, this. And they can do that, but they don't really know how to read the field, or they really don't know what's going on the other side of the field.
Yeah, I know a perfect example of that would be Matty Marshall for Excessive. And
Yeah.
We've talked about it on this show. A lot of people thought he was, they regulated him to the B team because he wasn't very good, but he was leading those younger guys, and now you see what they're doing in the pro ranks. Okay, Gary, let's get into a little more of as we turn up the lights here and the heat comes on, let's get the real story. And I know there's been, in press coverage, a lot of things can be read in. A lot of people think that because articles in a publication or on the internet, that may be word for word what you said, and that may not be the case. So let's get it from the horse's mouth, so to speak. And in your words, without, maybe we don't have to slam anybody, but what really happened with Dye? And are you on good terms now? What was the whole situation with that?
What happened with Dye? I think it comes to time that you just have to make a change. You know, I went to Dye when I left Draxis and I went to Dye, and my intentions were to stay with Dye. I had a conversation with John Gregory, who is Dave's father-in-law, and we talked a little while. And I always saw myself as finishing paintball with Dye. But as I got more and more involved with paintball and more involved with Dye, it wasn't what do you call it? Self-fulfilling, I guess you could say, because everything I was doing for someone else, And then I would get comments from people that I respect in the industry, Richmond and things like that, Jerry and those guys. They say, somewhere along the way you're going to have to take care of Gary. Before I got into it, Gary's okay. Financially I'm okay, but they said, maybe you want to think about your kids and stuff like that. And I go, yeah. In the back of my mind, I said, well, I could just go ahead and leave stuff to them, but maybe I should build something on my own. But I didn't think I had the energy anymore, because I've done that in paintball, or in scuba, and now I'm involved with paintball. And I didn't know if I had that same kind of energy. I didn't know if I wanted to dedicate that much time in paintball to do that. And so for the past year and a half, I've been thinking about that. And then other things going on that go, well, you know, they're growing and changing, and I'm kind of a weird kind of guy anyway. You know, somebody told me a long, long time ago, a friend of mine, he's passed away now, but this is in the scuba industry. He says, you don't know it yet, but basically you're unemployable. You know, and a guy named John Gaffney told me that. He says, you're basically unemployable. And I think what happens is that once you've worked for yourself long enough, by yourself, on making your own decisions, you can't fit in the corporate world anymore. It just doesn't work because things by committee just frustrate you. And you're used to just making decisions on your own, and that makes you unemployable. You can work for somebody for a little while, and I treated Dye like it was my own company, but it just wasn't satisfying anymore after a while. So they knew that was happening. They were getting other people involved with things that I was doing, and leaving me more time to do things with PSP, more time to do things with NXL. So it just came to the point where we say, hey, maybe we can separate. And then we came to an agreement because they knew that I was helping out Hybrid, and we separated out, and it got mixed up with work and sponsorship, and that was a hard one to settle. And then we came to the conclusion that it wasn't going to work where we have it split, where it's part Dye, part Hybrid, stuff like that. You know, you either have to have your feet in one or the other. And so we decided that I would just leave Dye and Proto and stick with Hybrid. And then it was also important for me to be able to do that so that I can approach sponsors. Because in the past 5 years, I was so entrenched with Proto and Dye that I was basically unapproachable in that aspect.
Yes.
You know, companies didn't come and ask me, say, hey, would you like to do this? They said, don't talk to Gary because he's Proto or Dye. You know, and now I'm not in that camp, so you know, other opportunities are making themselves available to me. So
okay,
it's
so
working okay.
It wasn't UFC fights with you and Dave, and you know, any of that stuff, and everybody's on as good terms as they could be.
As much as possible. I told him 2 years ago that if I ever left Dye, and we just said it in passing, that you know, if I stayed in paintball, that I'd end up being his competitor. Somehow I'd be competing with him. And we just kind of like looked at each other and maybe just smiled, didn't really take that seriously. But now that's the case. And the reason why I told him that is that Dye and Proto is in every aspect of paintball. So if I leave them and I stay in paintball, there's no way that I could not touch them in contact with them somehow, because they have every aspect of paintball involved. So, you know, with me being involved with Hybrid, yeah, I do sort of cross bases or cross paths, and there is some conflict here and there. But hopefully they realize that it's just business. It's nothing personal.
We talked on the phone. I'll make sure we're clear. Legacy is now in the MPPL. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're going to play. I've always said that we weren't going to play MPPL, and I guess, you know, those kind of statements always come back to haunt you. But yeah, we're playing MPPL, and part of the reason why we're playing MPPL is because the sponsors want that. The sponsors want as much bang for the buck as they can possibly get. So they say, if you could work it out, we want you to play in MPPL.
So you're taking one of Bob's spots, or let's put that all together for us.
Yeah,
so
what people don't. Okay, what Bob has is Bob has 2 spots that belong to Bob, and then Empire or National, they own one of those spots. It looked like there was 3 teams, all owned by Empire or National, but there was only one team that they had, or spot, they can say. So when Bob recently made the departure from Empire National, then that left him with 2 spots. And because of business dealings that we've had, I purchased one of the spots, and that gave him the ability to be able to do some things that he needs to do.
Okay, so Bob is going to keep the Oakland Assassins.
He's keeping the Oakland Assassins. Or I think he's keeping the Empire name.
Okay.
But he's going to change that.
Okay.
You know.
So they're in the top 4, I believe, in the MPPL. And you're going to take the Philly Assassins spot.
Yeah, I'm taking the Philly Assassin spot.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's going to be Legacy.
Yes.
Okay, so you're going to, again, start from the bottom, work your way up. And
yeah, and then, so Infamous had their spot already, which is under an Empire, and it's owned by Empire. And then Bob, I forget what Bob's name was. I think it's Empire or something, Empire Assassins. But he's going to change that name to whatever. I think it's going to be Blast or something like that, because his company is Blast. And then I'm changing the Philly Assassins name to to Legacy, and we're negotiating about what city or whatever.
Okay.
You know, there's
okay.
contractual agreements you have to abide
Yeah,
by.
the Dynasty's got so maybe the.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll have to figure out a
Yeah.
San Bernardino
or
or something.
maybe I won't even use this city.
Oh, okay.
You know,
Okay.
that kind of thing.
So who's actually going to be on that team? That'll be Little John as well, and some of Bob's guys.
On the
or all your
NPPL?
guys? Yes.
We haven't decided that yet.
Ah, okay.
You know, we haven't decided. Just because you're an NXL player doesn't mean that you're a 7-man player. And sometimes just because you're a 7-man player doesn't make you an NXL player or an X-ball player, I should say. So we're looking at that. We're trying that out. I have some names, and if I can't fill it, then there'll be some people probably from Bob's team that'll move over because they want to play too. But I don't know what the names are yet.
Gotcha. Nothing we can.
Of course, John's going to be on the team. I know some core people, and I'm also.
What about you, Gary?
Depends on how many guys come on. You know, I would prefer not to play. And it's getting more and more comfortable every day not to play. But but if I have to play, yeah, I'll play.
Okay. The NXL, and how this works now. So, Bob's guys are going to come over to Legacy for the NXL.
Yeah, Bob has 9 guys. Okay, he called up and he says, "Can we move 9 guys over?" I said, "Sure, we'll play 9 guys." And the rule in NXL is that you can have 18 rostered players. Okay, 18 on the roster. So that means I'm limited to 9 players also. I had 13 on the roster, so simple math says I got to get rid of 4 guys. That doesn't mean that I drop 4 guys. It just means that I won't roster 4 guys. You know, and it's back to that thing where I know everyone wants to play. Well, we've always told them that the best 10 are going to play, and some guys didn't play. And so it was a hard decision, but you have to say, okay, well, you know, certain guys are going to not play. When you look at our team, Legacy, and then you look at Bob's team and his 9 guys, yeah, I have to be honest, those 9 guys were probably strong, you know, or stronger than the 4 guys that I let go. So they see that too. They went up and we went up there in practice. They saw that, so it was an easy decision, you know. Now what we have to do is we have a total of 18 guys. We're trying to do it with 3 squads. We'll try it at Chicago and see how that works. That's all I can say, you know. Do I think that's the best? No, I don't think it's the best. But I have to be careful because I can't use all of Bob's guys and completely destroy Legacy because I still have to maintain a roster for the MPPL. And he knows that, so we'll work it out.
Gotcha. All right, there's another question for you, Gary. This is something we didn't really preview beforehand, but again, you've been in this industry a long time, been still playing professional, now a multiple team owner, I guess, because we're in 2 different leagues.
Yeah. Call me crazy.
Yeah, where do you see in the future, and obviously it's interesting, we see the resurgence of, of woods ball again and all this. Where do you see the tournament industry going? Do you see, and Chris and I have talked about this for 3 years in our show, do you ever see a one league kind of situation where type of an NFL thing? We all know these NFL owners can't get along, but they agree not to get along and hire a commissioner and just deal with it, but just having one league. Do you ever see that happening, or where do you see the future of pro paintball going, Gary?
Yeah. Well, what you just described in football is what I see with PSP. Do I see that with MPPL? No, I don't see that. MPPL is run by 1 guy, 2 guys, you know, and they like it that way, and that's why they keep that format. Even though the perception is that it's run by teams, that league is not run by teams. That team is run by 2 individuals, and they'll tell you, you know, how it's going to work, you know, though they'll make you believe otherwise, but that's how it works. And the PSP isn't quite that way. The PSP, what I admire about the PSP is that you have all the competitors, all the competing companies, all the big companies, all as, you know, joint owners, and they all work together. You know, we jokingly said one time we were sitting in a meeting, you know, and we were talking to some ESPN people, and they go, you know, how easy we get along, and they go, it's amazing you guys get along, and we're kind of like, and we're sitting there on our tables. This is in New York on email. We kind of like email to the guy next to you because, yeah, there isn't a single person in this room that hasn't sued the other person somehow, some way. You know, we just kind of like all chuckled. But even though we've sued each other, they all work together. So there's something to be said that's positive about that. You know, there's a common effort. So how do I see tournament ball going in comparison? I constantly remind the industry that, you know, 90% of this industry has nothing to do with tournament paintball. It's all woods ball. Or there's probably more renegade ball being played around the world or around the United States than there is anything else. Tournament ball is just real small, but it's no different than NASCAR. It's no different than motorcycle racing. There's absolutely no difference, and that those people that are pro racers will drive the market for the rest of the industry, because the rest of those guys, the little league ASO players, they want to be like the World Cup guys, and there's only a handful of guys that can be, you know, the World Cup guys. There's only a handful of guys that can be professional football players, but they all want to be like that. So they all want to dress like them, they all want to act like them, they all want to appear that way, and they even look and see, maybe I can jump like Michael Jordan, or maybe I can, you know, play center like Shaq or whatever. You know, they all see themselves in some way and fit, and their body styles and all that kind. So I see professional paintball or tournament paintball dictating what the industry is going to do. It isn't the style or the format, but the clothing, the elbow pads, the masks, the gun styles are all determined through tournament ball, not rec ball.